Clipping is really misunderstood because in some contexts, it's totally terrible. For example, if you are performing a DJ set and you redline the mixer and make all of your songs sound distorted, people will make fun of you. And they'll be like, if you aren't redlining, you aren't headlining, and other stupid remarks, your music will sound like poo-poo and people will not like it. So that in that context, it's quite bad. Also, if you are, for example, recording something that you want to be crystal clear, like a vocal, and you are running the vocal too hot into your sound card so that it crosses the maximum like 0 dB level and sounds distorted, that might be undesirable. You might want to avoid clipping there. So the problem is that a lot of people extrapolate from this to think, well, if clipping is bad in all these times, and I'm seeing it written about as bad, and I'm seeing people be made fun of for clipping things, clipping must be bad, right? And I'm here today to tell you that clipping is not bad. Clipping, used appropriately, is actually one of the best tools in your whole toolkit. It's fantastic. It can be used for tone shaping, it can be used to make things loud, and it's essential for removing peaks from your music and your recorded sounds in a transparent way. Okay, so let's say you have a recording and there's lots of like and syllables in it, and those syllables are jumping around and making big spikes in volume, right? Sometimes when you want to take away these very, very short spikes, a compressor is not actually the tool, not actually the best tool, because a compressor and limiters as well are time-sensitive processes, right? And that means that after, like, let's say this is the peak, right? And this is the threshold. The peak will hit the threshold and then the volume will go down for a while. But then the peak leaves and the volume has to come back up to its neutral state. And that can color your sound, that can change the way your transients hit, and that can create noticeable artifacts that sometimes you get less of with a clipper. What I'm gonna do first, right, is I'm going to get the Melda oscilloscope, which is here. And then I'm going to use one of Ableton's 2 sources of clipping. I'm going to use the saturator. So the Ableton saturator has a soft clip on right here. And a lot of people think that this is just like another type of color or whatever, and in a way it is, but what it's also more importantly doing is it is providing a hard limit for the audio. When you go past that limit, it just flatlines, right? And that limit is reflected on this graph here. You can see that they're like not the transfer curve, which is the central XY kind of grid, but to the right of that, there's like a left and right VU meter, and there's this line drawn across the center of it. It's just below the center, and that is the line at which the clipping occurs. And that is where you'll hear the tone changing and you'll see the wave changing. So this oscilloscope is going to look at the sound waves that we send into it, and it'll show us what shape they are, right? So you can see here, this is a sine wave coming from operator. It is not clipping or distorted in any way. It looks like a nice mathematical looking sine wave. Now watch as we increase the volume here, watch the volume approach this limit on the saturator, right? And we'll see. You can see that waveform is squaring off up at the top. And you can see that the curve kind of looks like the curve that you're seeing in the saturator. And that's because it is the curve that you're seeing in the saturator. See how they're coming up in pairs? right? So they come up in pairs. So basically each frequency here is generating the harmonics that are the mathematical reflection of this transfer function. What this means is clipping, saturation, etc., it adds highs and it makes complex things more complex.
Step in my dojo, you. Step in my dojo, you. Step in my